Chances are you know someone who's going through a divorce, someone who's grumbling about their spouse, or someone who never wants to get married in the first place. And yet every year more than 2.2 million people tie the knot. So are we walking down the aisle and then straight off a cliff? This morning we're kicking off a 3-day series taking a realistic look at marriage today. Some couples will tell you that marriage is a piece of cake. Others are more likely to agree with the characters in the movie Forces of Nature.
Marriage is a prison.
To me, marriage is just one big lie.
Oscar Wilde.
One should always be in love. This is the reason one should never marry.
Marriage, according to several studies, is something the majority of people still long for. Yet there are fewer married people today than ever before, and the divorce rate continues to hover at about 50%. So what's the deal?
People have very unrealistic hopes and expectations. And when we first meet somebody, we don't need to sleep, we don't need to eat, we can't get them out of our mind. So during those times of early relationships, our expectations are so high, this person can't do anything wrong. And then reality hits.
It's very easy to fall in love, but it's very hard to stay in love for a lifetime.
As we live longer, is the idea of marriage, of spending your entire life with only one person, really staying together until death do us part, an unrealistic concept?
I don't understand the idea of living with just one person for the rest of my life. I mean, how do you make a choice like that? That's like choosing what you're going to wear in 25 years.
It's really the Hollywood model. People go into marriage, I think, with no sense of permanency, knowing there is really no out. It makes you do things very differently than thinking, oh, well, if this gets uncomfortable, I can move on. If it were be something as simple as the next car you buy is the last one you're ever going to buy, you would treat the car very differently, probably. What's the equivalent of that for my spouse?
What are you looking for this time around?
Do people want to trade in their spouse as often as they do their car? In this instant gratification society, do we give up on marriage too quickly?
I find that people are willing to give up on their marriage once they think they've got a better deal.
That's cool.
With both men and women working, we have lots of exposure to other people of the opposite sex. And when you spend long time with other people, relationships do develop, chemistry does happen. People do tend to have affairs.
Well, we're not married. We're having an affair.
I'm happy for the first time in 34 years.
I don't believe this.
Of the 1 in 5 husbands and wives who will have sexual affairs, many stray during the first 5 years of marriage. Another 20% have an emotional affair. But it doesn't seem to bring happiness.
You know that old cliche about we learn from our mistakes and experience is the best teacher? It turns out nearly 6 out of 10 second marriages fail, and third marriages, all bets are off. It's nearly 7 out of 10.
All the couples who are on the brink of divorce right now, stop. Think about, is it really possible to save your marriage? And I would bet the answer for most people will be yes, if you know what to do.
Love is a battlefield.
Does that mean that marriage is work?
There's a tremendous amount of work involved in marriage.
We know it's hard work.
Marriage is the hardest thing that I've ever done.
Kind of makes you want to run from the altar, doesn't it?
I think to go into it expecting that it's not going to be hard work, I think is very unrealistic. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy. The key issue is to make sure it's not difficult all the time.
Just the same way that if you want to have a beautiful garden, you need to put some time and effort, but that doesn't have to be work if you really enjoy what you're doing.
There are benefits to sticking it out. Married individuals are generally happier, healthier, and wealthier.
Recognize I went into this relationship
For better, for worse.
For sickness and health.
till death us do part. Knowing that compromise and even sacrifice was part of that package.
Rita DeMaria is the author of The 7 Stages of Marriage. She's been a marriage counselor for more than 30 years, and Dr. Scott Holtzman is a psychiatrist and author of The Secrets of Happily Married Men. Hey, folks, good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
So people, when they get married, they fight about things like money, sex, and children, but shouldn't we put at the top of the list, you're going to fight if you have those unrealistic expectations that we talked about in that piece?
Sure, you have to know how to resolve differences. That's one of the prime indicators for what is going to make for a successful marriage.
But where do we get these expectations from?
Right, because we see these Hollywood movies, we see what looks to be the perfect marriage, and we have the idea that that's what marriage should look like. And so we go into marriage expecting that our relationship is going to be perfect because our spouse is going to make it perfect.
We're going to live happily ever after.
We're going to have passion, we're going to have
stages
goosebumps and all those
along.
things.
Yeah.
And that's unrealistic to assume that that's going to last past a certain point in the marriage.
Well, you can keep that alive. You just got to know what to do. You have to have knowledge and skills and tools in order to keep it working.
Well, I think that you know, if you give people the idea that you can keep that going forever, you miss the point that you do lose that intense passion after the initial phases of marriage, but that's normal.
Well, I'm not sure that's completely true. There are many couples who have been married 30, 40 years who say they're more in love, that their sexual relationship is better, that everything is much better.
But they went through times when they didn't have that passion.
Right, it's an up and down.
Let's talk about time. So much pressure on people these days,
Absolutely.
scheduling, 2 careers, everybody's running, taking care of the kids. How much of an issue is simply that we don't have time to concentrate on our marriages?
Well, the cooperation stage in the 7 stages is one where all those things are happening, and that's a stage where people really do have to prioritize their marriage, have date nights, really pay attention to how they're using their time and where their focus is.
What happens is that we set things up so that you get up in the morning, you have your cup of coffee, you put your cologne on, you look great, and then you go out there and spend 8 hours, 10 hours with the rest of the world, not with your own mate.
And by the time you come home, you're exhausted and you're not thinking the same way you were when you started your day.
Right.
What do you say to the people who say marriage is hard work, obviously, but it wouldn't be as hard a job if I were with the right person?
No, I think we all married the wrong person. We all married someone different than we thought we were going to.
You're bumming me out, Scott.
I met my wife and I said, oh, I know exactly who she is. Yeah. She meets this definition, but it was my idea of who she was.
Well, I think there is that chemistry and passion, and we do get attracted to somebody who basically is potentially a soulmate. But we have to know how to get to know them and work out the issues with them over time.
But they don't meet our expectations right from the beginning.
And that takes us right back to the beginning of our discussion.
And having the conflict resolution skills.
Rita DeMaria and Dr. Scott Haltzman, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.